Okay, so I wanted to do a quick video. I think it would be helpful for me, to get this out there, and maybe helpful for other people in a similar situation. I don't know. So, it is December the 17th. On November the 10th, I booked a day off work. My job is reasonably intense. I'm not saving lives or performing surgery or anything like that. I work for an aerospace company in Gloucestershire. But the job carries a lot of responsibility and a lot of decision making, and it can consume you. I've been in this role for 3.5 years now, and it's the kind of job that is always on your mind. I'm part of a very small team, there's only 2 of us doing this particular job, and it's just always there. You don't clock out at 4 o'clock and forget about it. You're thinking about it sort of, in the evenings and at the weekends on your downtime. And that was something that I thought would get easier over time. But it hasn't. I thought I would get better at dealing with it. And, just being at peace with that's just what the role requires. But it appears that is not something that I am very good at dealing with. So anyway, on November the 10th, I had the day off. I booked that Monday off because I just needed a day of quiet. I didn't tell any of my family members that I had the day off. I just needed to be left alone and just do whatever I wanted to do. I just wanted some calm, some quiet, and to just be left alone. So on that day, I took the dog for a walk. I live in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire. Beautiful place to live. I lived here all my life. And we went down to Stoodley Ponds, which is not far from me. And we had a walk around. And it was absolutely chucking it down. But I was stood in the woods with my eyes closed, just kind of embracing the elements. And it was wonderful. It was exactly what I needed at that moment. And I just loved the quiet. I needed that. I went back to work the following day, Tuesday the 11th. But I walked into that office and I just felt so overwhelmed, which was quite foreign to me. It's not necessarily something that I've experienced, really. I'm quite a chilled kind of guy. I don't tend to let things bother me too much. But in that moment, I was very sensitive to the fact that I couldn't be in that office. But I sat down and logged on to my laptop. Just started to go through some emails, just start the day. But after maybe 10 minutes or so, I just could not stay in that office. So I went out onto the shop floor and just kind of found a quiet corner. and just had a couple of minutes to myself, and I recognised that what I had experienced wasn't normal for me. So I reached out to my GP at my local health centre, and I just felt like I needed to speak to someone, and that's kind of the only thing that I thought I needed. I felt like I just needed to have a conversation about how I was feeling. And the GP called me back on that Tuesday afternoon. My finish time on that day was 4:00, but I was still there. Not long after, but it was about 4:45 on that Tuesday. And I kind of had a little bit of a meltdown. I think possibly because I was verbalizing stuff that was in me that I perhaps hadn't felt comfortable, obviously, like saying out loud previously. I'm not terribly good at allowing myself to be vulnerable. I'm fine. Just crack on, just, I'll be alright. You just kind of, just crack on, don't you? And that kind of, at that moment, became impossible to sustain. So I just kind of had a little bit of a meltdown, which kind of took me by surprise a bit, really. I'm quite an emotional guy, but in that situation, I was surprised how much kind of came out, I suppose. And the GP said that I was suffering from burnout, with perhaps some sort of like mild depression and sort of struggles with anxiety in there. And I told him about my day, when I had the Monday off, and how much I enjoyed it, and just sort of having some time to just kind of decompress. And so he suggested that I have some time off work, so he signed me off work for 2 weeks at that point. And my reaction to that was, hang on a sec, I need to figure out how that's going to affect my week. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And at that moment, we had a lot going on at work. We were building up for an audit, so we were preparing for that. So we had a lot going on, and we were busy. But besides that, the normal day-to-day stuff still needed to continue. I just had a lot of work to do. So I kind of explained that, and he was like, no, you're done. And in hindsight, I needed that. I needed somebody to step in and just say, no, you need to get away from that place. You need a break from work. So Wednesday the 13th was my first day of being signed off. And on the sort of GP's recommendations, I just started to do the things that makes me happy. Do the things that make me happy. So, I was out in the forest a bit, riding my bike. I do a lot of biking. And just, playing my guitar, walking the dog, reading. But I still struggled with work. I was still thinking about work, which annoyed my mother immensely. I had to explain that, I just couldn't switch off. I couldn't just go from being sort of at work to off work and just flick the switch and I don't think about it. I was still thinking about things that I needed to arrange, things that were due, overdue, things that were coming up. And I felt bad for sort of being off work anyway, because there are only two of us. when one person's off, it puts a lot of strain on the other. So I was feeling quite uncomfortable about that. So anyway, I had a couple of weeks, but I felt like nothing had changed in that 2-week period. So when I went back to see my GP, I had written some stuff down before I went, because I felt like I probably couldn't get my point across as to how I was feeling without kind of getting upset. And I was saying to him that I seem to have a really low tolerance for people at the moment. Just being in sort of situations, just normal situations where there are a lot of people, I find those quite overwhelming. The noise of just being around other people, I'm finding difficult at the moment. And also I feel like I'm kind of reacting quite negatively to others. Not necessarily in a way where I'm arguing or like picking fights or anything like that, but I'm just finding other people difficult. I'm finding it difficult to be around other people, really, besides family. Family is easier. I can just be me around family. I just need to give myself permission to just be the genuine version of myself at the moment. Sometimes I don't want to speak to anyone. I don't really want to be in anybody else's company. I just want to be left alone. So I kind of communicated as best I could to the GP, and I suggested that I felt like nothing had really changed over the 2 weeks. I was still kind of thinking about work, but so he signed me off for another 4 weeks. My next appointment with him is Christmas Eve, the 23rd, to kind of just talk about how I'm doing. And he suggested a couple of options regarding therapy, one of which being cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT, which I think my sister dabbled with not long after my dad passed away. So I had an assessment with the CBT company locally on Friday the 5th of December. And I kind of just explained everything, like I'm explaining to you now. And his initial opinion, said that, he feels like work is the core reason of why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And, not having that sort of time to decompress, with the work-life balance being so work heavy, it just encroaches on that downtime. So he feels that work is the the catalyst for this, which I kind of agree with. Prior to this, I was kind of doing alright, but over time it's just kind of compounded, really. But I also aired a few sort of personal things to him. I didn't know if some personal things were kind of rumbling in the background, sort of like historical trauma, perhaps. Just the usual stuff that everybody goes through. I'm certainly not special in that regard. We all go through difficult situations, and some people deal with it better than others. And I kind of feel through certain periods of difficulty that I feel like I kind of dealt with it at the time, but you never can tell, I suppose. So I was concerned that there might be something in the background that's kind of, contributing to the way I'm feeling. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. So, yes, burnout, depression, and anxiety. So I've got a bit of work to do over the next little while. Just feeling a bit lost at the moment. I feel that things need to change, but I'm not entirely sure what at the moment. But as I'm sure many of you can relate, you get to a point where you are financially committed, which restricts options. So without making sort of really drastic personal changes, I am reasonably tied to the company, but I'm really enjoying not being so connected to work. As time has gone on, this is my 5th week off work. As time has gone on, I have thought about work much less. Having that disconnect is really helpful for me. I'm thoroughly enjoying my calm days, just being at home, riding my bike, just quietly, just having some time. I can feel my brain just kind of like working through all these different things. Certainly when I'm in the gym as well, I'm still going to the gym a couple of times a week. So I had probably a 5-year gap of not going to the gym. But I started back again this year, going back a few months now. So I'm probably about sort of 4 months back at the gym. I'm just going a couple of times a week, whereas before I was going sort of 4 times a week, doing a decent split. I became so obsessed with it that it started to kind of control my whole life, really. And my relationship with my partner really suffered because of that, because it was all I was focused on. So I'm very mindful about not getting too carried away with that. So I'm just going sort of 2 times a week, just doing a full body thing, which is great. So I really enjoy it. It's helping with the biking as well. Like, the biking's my big thing, really. I did start sort of doing these videos when I first started biking, when I first got my first proper bike, but lots changed since then. I like to think I've got slightly better on a bike. And the bike collection has grown, as has my son's. So we do a lot of biking, go to a lot of bike parks. I get out, in the forest with my son on weekends, and that's just what I love to do. I would just love just to be able to ride my bike. It's good for my brain. I know I have to go back to work at some point, and that's fine. I'm not shying away from work at all. I've worked since I left school in May 1997. I left when I was 15. I wasn't 16 until the August, so I was 15 when I left. Already had a job in a music shop. So I've been working full-time since May 1997. So I'm not trying to get out of work. I'm happy to work. I know you need to work. But I need to do something that is less stressful, for sure. I would love to do something that I, enjoy doing for a living. I'm so envious of people that get to do that as their job. And I know there's an element that, it's going to feel like work at some point, regardless of what you do. But to do something that you enjoy for a living, that's something I've never really experienced, and probably never will, I suppose. But I don't know. Who knows what the future holds, I suppose. So my question to you is, have you ever been in this position? Are you in this position at the moment? Are you struggling with, your mental health, in any way, whether it's, anxiety or, depression, or, you're sort of suffering some kind of burnout due to stress, as I am. How are you dealing with it? What steps are you taking? I would be really interested to sort of hear your experiences, and perhaps what steps you took in order to sort of dig yourself out of this, gloomy hole. But I wanted to just put this video out there. I thought it would be good for me to just put it out in the world. Whether anybody sees this or not, I don't know. But it's been good for me to kind of just talk about it, and hopefully it will be helpful for perhaps other people that are going through something similar, to know that you're not going through it on your own. I'm probably one of many going through something, like this. But I know there's a bit of a difficult road ahead. So I don't know if I'll do any more videos on this. I may do. I might do a follow-up just to kind of check in and just see how the progression's going, I suppose. Like, it'd be good to maybe document my progress through this. I just need to look after myself a bit. Just avoid stressful situations, hectic situations, noisy environments. Kind of put myself first a bit, and just do the things that bring me joy and bring me calm. I just need some quiet at the moment. And then hopefully the therapy will open some doors. Please reach out in the comments below. I look forward to having a read of people's stories and situations. So I think I've rambled on for more than enough, but I hope this is helpful to somebody, and I will see you in the next one.